Hello and welcome everyone to this evening session where we will give a little bit of an introduction to the Sainsbury Laboratory for people who have not been here, and then have a Q&A where you can ask your questions live. It will be me, I'm Henrik. So I'm a professor here at the Sainsbury Lab, and I'm also the director currently. And it will be Edwige Moiroyd and Alexander Jones will join us soon. We just thought we could give you a little bit of an overview for the people who haven't been here before to see what the lab looks like. So it is a lab that was dedicated and built to the purpose of understanding plant development. So to the right, I actually have the botanic garden. It's a little bit dark for you guys to see now. Unfortunately, we are in the UK. And then to the left, we can see the lab area. And as you can see, it's a very open area. And groups here are not getting a dedicated space, but we share all the space among the groups. You might be able to see the coffee area here and the coffee machine. So the coffee is, of course, very important, and it's always free at the Sainsbury Lab. So I will now take you a little bit backwards here. See if you see anything. Hopefully, Andrew, I will not fall behind the camera. And you can see again that we have the lab area with the kind of front lab area. And then the more dedicated equipment is in the back. So one thing that the architects thought about was to have a very flexible environment. So the idea is that we should be able to get the latest equipment in if there are changes to what we need in the lab. The other thing that architects thought a lot about is collaborations. So we have these cubicles here as one example where people can come and discuss their science. And the other thing is that we have lots of meeting rooms, and all scientists are on one single floor here, which was also an important aspect when they built the lab. So it's about 10 years, actually 11 years old now. And slowly going back. And as I will describe later, and as you have seen in the two positions we are currently advertising, is that we want to connect the latest experimental science with also the computational and quantitative side of things. So I will pass by here now to show the setup for people sitting in the lab. So we have this open plan solutions, and people are now running away because they don't want to be part of this recording. And again, we mix all the groups, so we don't have our own corners, but what we rather mix, and you can end up, if you get your group here, your members will end up anywhere in this area. So by this, I will actually go downstairs, and there Sandra and Edwige will greet you.
Hello. Hopefully you can hear us and the cameras have switched over appropriately. I'm Alexander Jones. I'm a group leader here at the Sainsbury Lab.
And I'm Edwige Moiroyd. I'm also a group leader here with Sander and Henrik.
And we will be hosting, Henrik will be with us very, very shortly. And what we're going to do here today is have a Q&A so that you can ask your questions about anything you want to ask about. And it doesn't have to be just about the current positions that we're advertising, the professorship positions, but other types of positions that we hold here as well. So group leaders and David Sainsbury Career Development Fellowships. So a bit of information about how the Q&A is going to work. We will try to anonymize everyone who's asking their questions. The chat and hand raising are disabled in this webinar. Please post your questions in the Q&A in written form. And just another thing, you will not be able to see the questions, but I will read them out loud before we answer, so you'll be able to get the question that way. And then a recording of the session will also be available on our website online. And the last thing I would like to mention is that you will have, we will also try and provide a transcript of the Q&A as well, so you can see it in written format. And then we can load up Henrik's slides.
Before we start, I will just give a little bit of an introduction, and please guys fill in, because it's a very short presentation with a few slides, and then we will come to the questions and answers. If I get yes. So I mentioned it before, but we've been open since 2011. We are fully funded by what's called the Gatsby Charitable Foundation, which is David Sainsbury's charitable Foundation. And he funded the building initially, and also have funds all the core part of the research here. So it's designed to be about 120 researchers in 10 to 12 groups. And the idea then is that the vision is to elucidate the regulatory systems for plant growth and development, and that the computational modeling side is very important. So again, it is also to use the kind of latest experimental techniques and do this in a quantitative way to get the understanding to the next level. So currently we are 8 groups, and you guys are probably lucky because we are replacing 2 at the moment. So Otlin Lais, our former director, left for the UKRI, and Ukka Harjota left for Finland for a national professorship. So that's why we currently have 2 professorships available, and we not know when that will happen again. And as you can see here, that our inaugural director, Elliot Meyerowitz, still has science going on in the lab. And then we have James Locke, who's currently the associate director, and then a list of groups that you can see in this one. And I did a little bit of gap to the last 2 ones, because these are the more junior group leaders, which are these career development fellowships that we have. But everyone is treated the same, and we meet every week to make the kind of core decisions for the lab. Different types of positions we have is a professor position. So this is a university professor position. And in Cambridge, that means that when you sign your contract, you get your retirement date in the contract. The group leader position are in principle the same. You get core funding, and the main difference is that the first 5 years you are more or less on a tenure track. So everyone gets evaluated every 5 years. If a professor is not passing, he or she will go to the university, to a department, while the group leader has the risk of actually having to leave the Cambridge if they don't pass the first one. But both Sander and Edvige, for example, are group leaders, and they have passed this first 5 year, which means that they are now tenured at the university. And then we have the David Sainsbury career development positions, and those are 5 year only and come with less core funding. So, and I think I just wanted to mention this, that I mentioned a little bit during the walk around, and this is that we don't really have individual labs. So we have support facilities that is shared by everyone. So we have a microscopy facility, we have an HPC, I list that first since I'm a computational person myself. We have a vet lab and horticulture, and everyone is kind of contributing and asking on how these are going to be developed further. So, and we just share space. So there hasn't been so far any problems with this, which means that anyone who comes, even if you come with a group, there is space available, and then we haven't been fighting at all about the different spaces.
I think that's one of the most positive thing about the Institute, because it means that it saves lots of time. We don't, each group has to reinvent the wheel and sort out horticulture or wet lab. Everything is managed for everyone. So it saves lots of money, lots of time. It's very efficient. And there is the same space guarantee for everyone as well. So lots of anxiety.
Especially for new starters.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start doing experiments.
Yeah. Within a week, we were functional, we could get started. So it was great.
That's really great.
That means that we have some limits, so you're not allowed to have more than 12 people in the group. So if you want to expand further than that, then you have to do we have collaborations within the lab. So in this particular moment, we are advertising 2 professorships. So one in plant development and one in quantitative plant development. So they are, I mean, the aim here, as mentioned, is that we want to do quantitative science. We prefer people combine the experimental side with the modeling side, which means that we expect that from everyone having an interest in this. The second one is then a little bit more aimed for people that already have experience of the modeling side, I would argue. So we do have a competitive salary. There is an additional to the university professor salary. There is an excellence award of 30%. For professors, we need to apply for this every time, but I'm pretty sure we'll get candidates that will have the chance to get this or will get this. And then for the professors, we start with a 330,000 pounds a year for core funds that you can use for whatever you like. I mean, I assume most people are using it for salaries for postdocs and for students and so on. And as I mentioned before, that there is it's a permanent position. So until you retirement at the Sainsbury, there is this cycle of 5 years, and you have to reapply for the core funds every 5 years. So in the case for professors, again, if you would fail such a thing, then you still have your position at the university. A short one on the application, you can read on this on the advert, and there is a further particulars PDF document as well, and it's actually 2 places with 2 links. So make sure you have seen that one as well. That includes a little bit more information. But what we're asking for is a cover letter, a research statement, a little bit about your past, but I think we like to see more on the vision and the future aims you have. And it's up to 5 pages, where 1 page should be more a timeline type of illustration. And then a CV with the publication list and a list of 3 referees that we might ask for letters for. And the deadline is the 21st of December. And the procedure then is that there is a university appointed board of electors that will meet and do the formal shortlisting and then do an interview. So the aim is to do the shortlisting in January. We then hope to invite a shortlist candidate to come and visit SLCU to discuss with the group leaders and potentially management board members. We'll have a chat with you as well. And then the formal interviews, the aim is to do that at the end of February or beginning of March. And I just mentioned, so there are, as you see, several stakeholders here. So you meet with group leaders that will give feedback. We do have a management board that is also involved in these 5-year cycles of Gatsby funding. And then the Gatsby also have an independent evaluation towards the end. So it takes a little bit of time to go through all these steps and lots of people to make happy before you get the offer, but it usually works out in the end. And just a little bit on what is expected. We are a research institute, and the aim is to provide an excellent environment for us to do excellent science. So that is of course the main aim. We are taking quite a large interest, and we really like to see people that are mentoring the next generation of scientists. So you need, we like to see a collaborative environment, and we like to see the next generation of scientists getting space and be mentored well in the lab. So we find that quite important as well. At the same with the third note here, with that we really like the collaborative environment. So you will be selected on your own excellence, but we will also look at how much will you actually add to the rest of the groups at the Sainsbury, and how much might they actually add to your career in terms of your development. So it's a kind of the total development of the lab, including you, that will be the main factor. And then we're making sure that people are engaging at the university level or wider in the society in terms of management roles and leadership roles and so on. And then that is also part of this, to make sure we increase the profile of plant sciences that is of course a little bit underrepresented in life sciences. So doing outreach, taking part of different kind of grant applications and these kind of things is also quite important for us. So with that, I think we'll leave the floor open for questions, if I can just. Stop share. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have some questions already, and we will try and get the. There we go. Get them loaded up for you. You will not be able to see them, so I'll just try and read them carefully, slowly for you. And let me get the chat running as well. Oh dear. There it goes. Great. Thank you. We have excellent helpers in the background. Fixing our problems here. Okay. So the first question is, how does the Sainsbury Lab define plant development? And we get this question a lot. Henrik, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, I think it's quite broadly. For me, I think if you ask the different groupers, they have a little bit different attitudes to this. But for me, it is this kind of multicellular process of understanding how a plant is growing and developing. And I also like really to do it in terms of understanding the regulatory parts in as well, so I can create the model of this process. What we have some interest in my group as well is some interaction with the environment, and I think this is going to be more and more important in the upcoming years. So I'm maybe a little bit the core plant development, but with understanding of the environment coming into play.
Yeah, and I think we really take a multi-scale approach, a multi-scale definition of development. So going from the really molecular, tiny, nitty-gritty detail of your favorite cell, what's happening with your favorite gene or your favorite protein, up to how these cells talk to each other and create a tissue, and how the tissue talk to each other and create a functional organ, and then how an organ create an entire organism, and even how that affect either, as Henrik said, the interaction with the environment, but also interaction with other organisms. And with that come a kind of different scale in time as well. So lots of the questions we investigate, we also look at them from an evolutionary lenses and seeing how evolution can change the developmental process to create diversity. I think.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind that many of the people who have been at Sainsbury Lab or are at Sainsbury Lab were not necessarily hardcore developmental biologists by the time that when they came. I certainly wasn't a defined developmental biologist before I came, and I think I've become one. And there is some flexibility in the details. So if you're not a core plant developmental biologist, you can still apply. And I guess the big message is that you should be interested in moving into this conceptual frameworks of plant development whilst being here in Sainsbury Lab.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are more likely to find new things when we have people coming from a completely different perspective, and that has worked really well. And that's why we're interested. But you need a developmental question. It doesn't matter if you've done development before. And it's also, I would say everyone that's come to the Sainsbury Lab is probably thinking differently a few years in than when we all started. The idea is that we want to bring people in that come with their own vision, but we also expect your own vision to be shaped and to be, to grow, because you are the Sainsbury and you're going to interact with people you would not have interact otherwise. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what is the second question is, what is the term for the professorships, and are they permanent positions or subject to 5-year review? So Henrik did just mention it. You want to repeat real quickly?
We can repeat and say the position itself is a permanent position until retirement here in Cambridge. But the group as such and your placement at the Sainsbury Lab will be reviewed every 5 years. So
the core funding.
For the core funding and for the excellence award from the salary and so on, that might change if you don't pass our evaluation every 5 years.
Right. And then the third question is, are university departments involved in selecting the candidates, or does this association develop later, like a college appointment? So yeah, the university departments are not involved in selecting the candidates per se, but the professorship role does have there's a role for the School of Biological Sciences in selecting these candidates. And as Henrik said, we have our management board as well that is involved. And eventually Gatsby will have an independent evaluation as well for the funding that comes with the positions. Now, it's interesting to mention the relationship with the departments, because once you are here, it does in fact, as the question says, the association does develop later, and everyone in the Sainsbury Lab will develop a close association with one of the departments in Cambridge. And there are several different departments already represented here.
We try to cover many.
Yeah, and there's plenty of options, and the diversity is good there. And that's actually a nice strengthening of the role here, is that you have access to these wonderful departments in the university, other departments of the university. And that is where you will do your teaching mostly So there's not a lot of teaching requirement, but all of us do teach, and that is where we would do your teaching. Most of your teaching roles is typically within a department home. And then just to follow up on that, we have a question about college affiliation, because the question mentioned colleges. Advish, you want to talk about colleges?
Yeah, college affiliation is not systematic. Several group leaders have no college affiliations. That's absolutely fine. And some of us do, both Xander and I have a college affiliation, and it can develop in all sorts of ways. It can develop quite organically because you meet colleagues and then you start discussing your science, and people might be at a college and invite you over, and actually there is a mutual interest there. Or some college actively put a call out because they are interested in recruiting a fellow, so a group leader on a specific topic. And I would say most associations with colleges also involve a little bit of teaching, but generally it's very light. It's mostly about mentoring students, looking at in terms of director of study or tutoring, or mostly contributing to the collegiality of the college. It's very similar the way college and the Sainsbury Lab are run. It's really about a group of people that want to exchange scientifically, discussing teaching practice and discussing broader contribution of the university to society. So that's very complementary to the university, to the affiliation with the department. And it's a nice way to really understand, I think, how the university works and to get direct contact with students as well.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar, many of you may not be familiar with the collegiate university concept, because it is quite unique to a few places in the world, Cambridge being one of them. And so the university is a separate legal entity from all the 30 or so colleges, but they are intimately connected and they function as a whole. So without going into all the details, colleges are not usually assigned topics like a department would be. So you'll be interacting. If you do choose to affiliate with a college, you'll have a social connection and a collegial connection with people from all over the university, different departments and completely different fields. And it's quite enriching. And there can even be things like going rowing on the river or lectures. And you obviously, maybe you've heard of the dining in college, which is just a nice classical Cambridge experience. So all of those are available once you're here. I
found it very useful also for establishing interdisciplinary collaboration, because as part of the department or the School of Biological Science, you may interact quite easily with other group leaders from the biology landscape, but sometimes it might be you may have less opportunity to reach out with people that are not biologists. And some collaboration with chemists, for instance, we started them via colleges, so it's very useful for that.
And very importantly, all students come through colleges, whether they're undergraduate or graduate, and that is a big part of the support system for your students that you will have here. They will absolutely be housed within a college, and it's a big part of their experience. So it's important, even if you're not personally affiliated with college, your students will be, and you'll be connected to it regardless.
I mean, the main point for me is that I'm not affiliated, but it's an opportunity. No one has to do this, but it's an opportunity to get an extra network and also access to students and so on. So
so there's departmental teaching and sometimes teaching in college as well. So lots of opportunities and a lot of flexibility, I would say, is the main message, is that you can choose how you want to construct your relationships on both levels. So the next question is, could you please inform the audience about your microscopy facility? I can take this one. We have many microscopes on the campus on our own facility. And we have actually quite a lot of confocals, because we all tend to have a similar interest, and a lot of people have shared interest in looking at cellular level behaviors in the context, like multi-scale behaviors, of course, from molecular to cellular to tissue and to organ. So we're quite strong there, I would say. If you want more details, of course, you can go to the website. And it's also important to keep in mind that Cambridge is, a big university. We have lots of additional access to microscopy facilities, both in the university, other departments, and also associated with the medical school. So there's and also institutes that are sort of extra Cambridge, but here and collaborative. So we have a lot of access to really outstanding microscopy. Really, anything you want, we have here.
Maybe also an important thing is I've been here 5 years, and that's the part of the lab that we keep developing and we keep improving. And for microscopy and with every equipment we have in the lab, the way it works is if there is more than one group that are interested in having access to a specific piece of equipment, we generally try to see if we can acquire this microscope or this piece of equipment using the core funding of the institute. So that's why we've been keep building the facility. For instance, we got a new tabletop SEM coming through, and we have new microscopes that are arriving. So the website is a good starting point. It might not always be up to date because we're actually building up the facility.
That's a good point. And then new people coming in,
Yeah.
If they really needed something,
Exactly.
then that we could usually make that happen.
Absolutely.
And that's really the point, is to be, it's a real strength of ours, I would say. And we also have excellent core facilities in general, I would say. And we have really excellent
2 dedicated people.
we have dedicated people at all types of facilities and horticulture that are really making our jobs easy as group leaders and as professors, in terms of making things work really seamlessly and helping all the students and postdocs get up to speed and get going.
They're also really proactive in looking at what new technological advance and making sure we are at the front of what is happening. Of course, you can come from the group, but there is also a very strong skill set within the people that look after the microscopy facility. So very often we have suggestions from them directly of what we should try to acquire
for the next
for the next step.
But I think the more important, it was mentioned, but I will just repeat this, that either if you come as a newcomer and need some equipment, or we realize over time this is something that we really need, and more than a single person is interested in this, then we try to acquire it via the core funding. Of course, there's some kind of budget restriction on this, but
the thing I found really useful is before I came, I checked and I couldn't think of anything I missed, but I was a bit worried, what if I need something later on? And actually, every time we've needed something, we've been able to discuss it, and if there was shared interest, it's something we've been able to acquire. So there is no pressure on this side.
So the next question is, what are your main selection criteria? So Henrik, do you want to repeat a little bit about the big picture?
Yes, I mentioned that before as well. Again, I mean, we are here as a research institute, and we really want to do the state-of-the-art internationally competitive science and work on the plant development with the quantitative aspects. But as I mentioned, we have these 5 criteria, which means that it is important as well. And I would argue that the collaborative is very specific here in terms of we are relatively small with 120 people. So we really need to help each other and do collaborative work. And I also think the mentoring with the younger people is also something we are really encourage people to take seriously. So if you do like to tell all you younger people exactly what to do and so on, I don't think this is the environment. Here they can come and they will be exposed sitting next to people from other groups, and in many interesting cases we had collaboration starting in this way, and this is the kind of environment we like to foster around here. So
great. So the next question is, how will the Sainsbury Lab make sure that documented inequities, for example, lower funding rates for people of color, fewer collaboration opportunities for women, do not disadvantage applicants from these groups? So I can start on this one. So we take this very seriously at Sainsbury Lab. We really put a lot of effort into getting better and improving consistently over time. We have, you may not be familiar, but we have a program in the UK called Athena Swan, where we try and put together plans with actions in the future and build towards improving EDI opportunities, or improving EDI in the Institute. And so we have a silver award, which means we're trying to do a really good job. And that is actually sort of serving as a sort of a benchmark for the College of Biological Sciences to start to expand in all of our EDI activities at the level of the college. And then of course the university is putting a lot of investment and attention to improving opportunities for people who may have come from disadvantaged backgrounds. As far as our specific hiring process in this search, we absolutely will consider every applicant in a holistic manner. And so we will are happy to take into account anything you want us to know. If you want to communicate that either via email to a chair or Henrik, the chair of the search, or in your cover letter. So anything you want us to know, whether it be a disability or a disadvantage that you would like us to know about, please feel free to, because it may not be obvious from the outside, please feel free to let us know. And yeah, we want to take everyone's application as a holistic summation of their experiences and make a decision based on that. And of course, we are always striving to get more diverse and improve our diversity as an institute at all levels. And that's a big part of our philosophy when we're hiring.
Yeah, I think one thing I really appreciate is this is not a one-off thing we do once a year. It's an ongoing conversation. Every week, almost on a weekly basis, we have events within the laboratory, whether there are discussion, whether invited speaker, whether there are one specific event we created for us to basically reflect, look at what we are doing, look how we could do it better. And it's not just talk, it led to really practical thing. There is a lot of things that have changed in the last 5 years. Room that we dedicated to specific way of supporting specific group of people, way of putting our advert out so it reaches the people we really want to reach. And we try to do diverse science and to look at development from all sorts of angles. And we all have very different personality, but we also want to do that with a bunch of people that reflect this diversity. That I think, yeah, we all acknowledge we do better science with having very different ideas. And we reflect that quite well at the level of PhD student, at the level of postdoc. And at the moment, we are really aware that the PI level is not reflecting that as much as we want. And that's something we really want to try to improve.
Yes, I think you summarized it well. But for this specific, I mean, we are really looking into this, and we are aiming. It's not like if you are Black or if you're a woman, you will get the position. But we are really trying to make sure they get the chance to get evaluated on their terms. So
yeah, and
I think the last couple of rounds, at least the female versus male ratio of interviews has been very well balanced. There's still problems, I would say, in general in Cambridge and for us in some other diversities. But
and that's one of the reasons we want to have this Q&A, is to encourage more people from backgrounds that aren't used to, maybe haven't thought about applying to us, to please do apply, so we can interview you and give you every chance. And also very important is, if you do get the position and you are a group leader or team leader here at any level, we expect you to participate in EDI activities. So really all of us are involved in one of our EDI committees. We have several. I'm involved in our EDI careers committee. Advisor,
do the student one.
We have
James do the family
and carers. So each committee of our EDI is focused on one topic, and that way the committee can, which is different people of different parts of the institute, not just
student, postdoc, staff. We try to have a representative of each.
And so you bounce ideas off each other, and we come up with real actionable plans. That's the idea. So
this has worked really well.
Yeah, we're trying to improve continuously. Obviously, we're not all the way there yet. Okay. The next question is, do you expect to hire at the group leader level in the near future? So you may be aware we just have a search close that's ongoing for a St. David Sainsbury Career Development Fellow. That's our sort of like our youngest or earliest career phase applicant. And then we have a group leader is the next phase. So that's what I am, and Nidvisha's. And then we have the professorships that are open right now. And the answer is yes, we do plan to hire more group leaders in the near future. So some people ask, is it okay to apply for multiple types of things? And yes, absolutely. If you are interested in maybe a CDF or a group leader position, because they're both great jobs, go ahead and apply to both. You will not be negatively considered for one because you applied to the other, and please do apply. If you want to apply for these professorships now, but the group leader position opens up next year, please, and you weren't successful in the professorship application, please do. Absolutely apply to the group leader. Okay, so the next question is, would the interview panel for the professorship in quantitative plant biology consider applicants from non-plant backgrounds?
So the short answer is yes. If people make sure that they say, okay, this is my research proposal and this is why and how I will approach what I've been doing, but to plants. So that happens in the past. I think even the other one, the plant development one, if someone comes with a very compelling idea, okay, I've been working with animals for a while and I have seen no one has done this in plants and I really want to apply this, and we find that vision as contributing to plant development, then we will clearly consider these kind of applications. So it's usually a little bit easier if you come from the computational side. So I assume that's why this was the question.
But I think, is it fair to say that people can carry on a strand of research that's not planned as long as they start
Yes.
a plant?
I mean, in the
plant
end,
program?
I think the evaluation will mainly be on your working
Yeah.
plants. But
there is a
clearly have
condition.
people that where if you can argue why you do something, like James is working with cyanobacteria, which potentially could be regarded as plants, but and why is that important for his questions in plant development? And someone like Francois working on the cytoskeleton, he has projects in animals as well, because it's so general kind of questions, and he can argue why this is important also for plant development. So that kind of interaction is clearly possible within our lab. If you have no interest in plant development, then you should probably look elsewhere.
It's a good point. Like, you don't have to have every single thing you do at Sainsbury Lab has to be strictly plant development. That's not a rule. So if there's a wing of your research that you'd like to keep whilst also adding a plant development, a large component of plant development, that's okay. Just a clarification on the last point about applying to multiple different positions. You cannot do that with one application. So if you want to apply to multiple positions, you have to reapply for the next application. And I would suggest putting in a new cover letter as well. Obviously, your main program might not change, and that shouldn't have to. But the cover letter should acknowledge the different scale that you're applying for. And then the next question is, where should I address the criteria, for, selection criteria, the cover letter or the statement of research? For example, my experience mentoring students and postdocs. Edwige, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I would say in past experience, the statement of research is really core on the science. What is your big question? What is your vision? How do you plan to approach it? So I would recommend to address this aspect in the cover letter. I think that's the best space, just because you can be as long as you want and you can really elaborate on that. Although, we appreciate to the point letter, but I would suggest a cover letter.
I think so as well. It makes better sense. And you can also in your CV, of course, you can list things, but you can also have a statement there in terms of your mentor.
Absolutely.
And potentially teaching philosophy and so on as well.
The next question is, what are you looking for in applications to demonstrate that they have an outstanding research record and international stature? Why don't I get started on this one? There is not one thing that really needs to be true. And something that we've taken to heart at this institute is that we are not looking for, H-index or some sort of quantitative, falsely quantitative metrics. We want to, again, look at the applicant as in a holistic sense. And sometimes outstanding research may not be by the traditional metrics, or maybe you're at a level. I mean, obviously, as a professorship, this particular search for the professorship, obviously, we would expect a track record. So you will have some obviously high, not necessarily published in any given journal, but high impact publications where it has made an impact on the field, and that there should be some evidence of that the field is regarding your research in a sort of very positive way. And we also have this idea of raising the profile of plant science. Do you want to take that one, Henrik?
Yeah, I mean, it is, as Sander says, it's not like we are looking for numbers here to find, but we want to see that people have contributed. Again, now it can be somewhere else, and then with a good vision on why this will be the contribution in plant development. The easiest is, of course, if you have a number of years of experience in the field, so you can easily point out some of your findings that have changed. I mean, at this point, we can mention this, that we have these 5-year plans, more or less, or cycles, and Gatsby really wants us to go for some of the larger questions here. So we do want to have a vision in the applications in terms of what you want to do, and not just fill in and have many publications and so on. So I think the ideas you propose are as important as exactly the background of your research. So
With also the idea, a bit similar to some big international call, that you may want to propose something that's a bit risky, that may take a few years. You may not need to get to the final answer within the 5 years, but there is a clear plan of how to progress through there. Yeah, just to have a bit more flexibility to try something that's a bit more risky, a bit more time consuming.
Yes. And this is always the problem.
Yeah.
Then you have to also convince us that you are the person that have a chance to succeed with these things.
Yeah, but we definitely like ambitious work, in particular things that may take a particularly long time to conclude, or would otherwise be difficult to fund with traditional mechanisms because of the nature of the research being proposed. So yeah, a vision is very top of mind, I think.
And potential maybe more than what's already exactly on paper. Always, I mean, talking from my experience, and it's more for group leader, I acknowledge than the professorship. My first author postdoc paper were not out at all when I applied, and that's why I thought that I would not be considered. And actually, that the proof that things might take time and might come, but people in the panel can see the potential and decide on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the slope of a career. As well as the level of the career that they are looking at. So again, the next 10 years, what will be the full contribution of the person hired, also with the interactions with them.
And we do look for people who are going to be leaders in their given field.
Yeah.
That is a metric we think about. Okay, so the next question is, my current research is similar to one of SLCU's current group leaders. Is this a problem? Not necessarily. But we do want you to be able to interact in a really productive way. So if you're doing exactly the same thing as one of us, then that would be obviously probably not great. But if there's an angle where there's something similar but working towards a different angle or from a different perspective, that could be actually quite synergistic. So I wouldn't necessarily exclude yourself and not apply just because there's a similarity. And we have actually taken times where maybe at the surface it looks quite similar, but and once you get down into it, it's not similar, and there's a lot of synergy there. And we absolutely want interaction, right? We are an institute looking at plant development, so of course there will be some overlaps, and that's by design.
I would say maybe a good test of that is if you can imagine yourself joining the institute and you feel you'll be comfortable, then it's probably mean there is no problem. If you think, oh, if I join the institute and I won't be able to exchange with this person, and I don't want people in my group to talk with people of the other group, then that's a problem.
That would be the opposite of what we want.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's all about, consider this, is there synergy there that would be exciting to you and would be exciting to the other group leader or career development fellow? Could you let us know, the next question, sorry. Could you let us know how decision-making takes place at SLCU with regard to decisions shaping the Institute? So this one's pretty easy. We are very collaborative, and we share a lot of opinions. Henrik is the director. So, he also, in the past, directors have also taken on this idea that everyone should contribute decision-making at all levels. So we have an all-hands meeting coming up where everyone can contribute ideas, and ideas from all levels have actually changed the Institute again and again. But in the end, Henrik is the director. So why don't you take over and finish up that answer?
Yes, again, formally, I have to sign many of the decisions in the end. But depending on what it is, I mean, we group leaders meet every week and kind of discuss these things. We are talking about vision, and we can go for a retreat, and all group leaders kind of it contributes to the next vision we're going to put out for the lab and so on. But it goes down all the way, as Sander says, to anyone in the lab. So every Friday I have a slot where anyone can come to my office and discuss any kind of aspect of the lab, the smaller or the larger aspects, and can feed in. And we have, for example, asked everyone to contribute potential candidates that we should contact for these professorships and so on. So really try to have a shared leadership. And one thing to mention for these professorships is that the directorship is a 5-year rolling position, and most probably, if you become a professor here, at some point you will be asked the question if you are happy to take over as the director of the institute. So okay, so we like to share in decision making, although in the end we have a director.
Okay, so we also have a management board that does
Yeah.
also advise a lot of the important decisions as well. So there's a lot of input here. Okay, so I think I haven't missed one, but the next question is, can I bring my research team or a number of postdocs and students with me? And do I need to include this in my application? I think at the professor level, we would assume that you may have at least a few or some people coming with you from your current position. And so that is, you're welcome to list that in your application, who you plan to bring, but I don't think it's absolutely strictly necessary to make that clear. But if it helps, if it's going to be helpful for us to make a decision on the application about what, or like arms or what personnel you like have in mind, that go ahead and let us know. I don't think it.
But it can be lots of people or nobody.
It cannot be more than 12.
Yeah.
No, that's
the only
rule.
restriction.
Yeah, you have to have 12 as the maximum. Henrik mentioned collaboration is the way to get more than 12, and that's true. So if you share a postdoc with 2 other groups, which sometimes happens, then that only counts like 1/3 of a position against your 12. And that encourages collaboration as well. And that works really well.
So one point to make as well. So again, that you can bring people, there's no restrictions. And the other thing is that this doesn't have to happen day one. I mean, there is, of course, in this, we understand you are running a lab probably at the moment, and there is a transition period, and we are very flexible in how quickly it's possible to do this transition. So
that's, I've been very impressed by the senior people above me, how flexible the Institute has been with accommodating complicated career paths and transitions. The next question is, in my research statement, should I list who I want to collaborate with? Edwige, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think yes and no, in the sense that it's useful to state that, because it just means that you've looked at who we are and what we do, and you started to have some idea of as a starting point. It's not binding. It doesn't mean that you absolutely have to do it when you come and then that's it. I think it is useful just to show awareness. But it's also okay. I don't think we would discard any application that do not list any collaboration, and to stay. It's really useful to come on site and talk to us and then see. I think.
Yeah, and during the interview process, you will be able to meet with whoever you want to meet with, either in person or follow up after on Zoom. So you will hopefully get more ideas for collaboration.
Especially because lots of collaboration, as Henrik and Xander said, are really bottom up. It's just postdoc students that chat with each other and start something. So it's not necessarily something that the group leader will have planned on day one on paper. And it's nice to have to be, I would say, by all means, list some possible collaboration, but remain flexible and open to deviation from that.
I mean, I always like to see that, why do they want to come to the Sainsbury? And so it's not like the application could have been to anywhere in the world, that there is some arguing why this is the place for the candidates. And collaborations is clearly one way to do this. But as Edwige says, also that there's indication that they at least know what the lab is that they're applying to is useful.
In that vein, keep putting your questions in the chat if there's something you want to know, because we have still some time. Okay, so when do you want the role to start? And is there some flexibility if I want to finish a current grant or fellowship? I think that's absolutely yes, there's some flexibility. I don't know how, I mean, some grants are longer term. So do you want to?
Yes, I mean, this will have to be an individual discussion. But as I mentioned, we do expect people to have grants running, and there is no reason to try to cancel these, but they can run over time. I do think we want someone to come over here in not wait 5 years before we see the group leader themselves or the professor themselves. But we are very flexible in terms of a transition period. I would argue.
That's right. And there's no, like for example, we don't have a particular teaching role envisioned for this position, so therefore there's added flexibility.
It can be any time in the year.
That's not like must to be here next fall or something. But I mean, we would be very happy to fill this position by the end of next year. I would argue would be nice, but again,
but it's not going to be a deal breaker. For the right candidate. We can
and maybe that's best during the interview phase. We can, and then obviously Henrik would be the person to talk to. You can also email Henrik now if you have a specific question or idea. Okay, so the next question is, what is the typical timeline for hearing if I'm successful? So we do tend to interview over a period of, let's say, 5 or 6 so weeks, couple months, and then we do now try to make decisions fairly quickly around that time, and then hopefully within a couple weeks, few weeks, you will get some hearing back about if you were successful. And then there are several extra steps. So we've already mentioned the management board will have a say on that. And then also Gatsby will send the fellowship out for external review. And then so that will also have to take some time. And usually that all progresses, like Henrik said, but unfortunately it does mean it adds some extra weeks and months to the entire final process. But really you should get quite a lot of information. Most information is provided at the end of the interviews. Once the interviews are completed, probably within, I would say, a few weeks, ideally, you'll get some information, or at least some indication of what is happening in the process.
It can be blocked at later stage, but we don't expect it to be blocked.
Yeah,
So
we would be
if
happy.
you get the email saying you are the candidate we selected and we recommend you for appointment, formally there is a few weeks to get that, but in theory, a big chunk of the process is engaged.
That's the main decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to know. So we hope to be able to shortlist towards the end of January. So if you're not successful, you might be a much quicker response here.
Yes.
And then have visits in February, if possible, with visa and these kind of things. And then it's the formal interview will be by this board of electors, and that hopefully will be end of February, beginning of March.
So by the end of March for the professor.
Yeah, and then the thing is that one person might get an offer, and we might have to wait for runner-up, etc. I mean, the experience is with this more senior level,
it can take
there is some negotiations going on after an offer has been made as well, and that will kind of delay things.
Sometimes it can take a lot longer for the senior level appointments like these professorships. And the next question is, what are the expectations for securing external funding? Henrik, do you want to explain that?
I mean, first we can mention, and one of the good things is that you have core funding here. So that's one of the things I really like here, that we apply for external funding, but it's very easy then to keep the projects going in between the external fundings, etc. So again, there is no real rule. We do expect that people do get external funding, but there are no rules, and there are different ways of getting this. The students in Cambridge often can find their funding, etc. So you can get students by having that kind of external funding. You of course can apply for the normal research grants, etc. But there are no real rules on how to do this. As long as you produce outputs, you can do it whatever way you like it. So.
And as part of our effort to mentor, it's also good to get postdoc. Although we have core funding to hire postdoc, we all try to encourage postdoc to apply to their own funding, because it's good for their CV, it's good for their grant practice, and that's also another way to get funding in.
The next question is, what are the long-term career paths available for David Sainsbury Career Development Fellows? And so how long, the question carries on, how long is the contract and what progression opportunities are there? Can I go on to a tenure track position?
Yes, so in principle, these positions are 5 years, very much like many other fellowships in the UK. And there's no promise made for any extension after this. But if there will be a group position available, clearly the CDFs can then apply for this one, or to other kind of tenured position or tenure track positions in Cambridge. But there are no promises made with these ones. So that is a little bit of a risky thing with these. But I would argue that everyone we have had so far have more or less moved on before the end of the 5 years by finding a very good position to move to.
I think that's one of our recruitment criteria. All the people who were awarded this career development fellowship were people that we were confident they would get. They would be in a very good position to get a tenure track, a PI position within the few years of starting the development fellowship. So it's really a transition thing, and it's not a tenure track position. It cannot be expanded But of course, people are encouraged to apply, and we had that to group leader position if they become available during their CDF.
Yeah, the idea is to become competitive
Yeah.
on open searches, and it doesn't necessarily need to be PI position. We've had a career development position, a fellow go on to a very successful role in industry as well.
Yeah.
And we think that way for all of our postdocs and PhD students as well. That we're not only training just for academia. We absolutely encourage many career paths, and hope that you would do the same for your team.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what type of publications can I include? Preprint reviews?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. You're welcome to list reviews and book chapters or anything you feel is relevant for our patents, for example, anything you really think is relevant for the committee to know about, including preprints.
Yeah, do include
absolutely.
preprint. It's much better if we can have access to the manuscript. If the manuscript exists, it's better if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Will my job interview seminar be publicly advertised as being a job application seminar? I think in this case, we don't necessarily do that. We won't do that actually for the professorships. Is that right?
No, so they're advertised as seminars at the Institute. It's of course really can be a little bit obvious that if someone gives a seminar during this period, but we also have seminar series, which means that it hasn't happened before that people thought it was candidates when it wasn't candidates.
Yeah.
Right. So we will have other seminars at the Institute around then. So please don't don't assume that someone's a candidate. In fact, that confusion has happened internally as well sometimes. So yeah. That's to maintain anonymity and as much privacy as people will desire at this stage. Yes. And then also there's some level of confidentiality in the applications.
Yes. So I mean, people are interviewed or visiting the lab. So to some degree, it might be at least speculated among the lab people who's there. But in principle, it's confidential for the board of electors throughout the procedure. So.
And then what sections should my statement of current and future plans include? So I think we can say that there's no, explicit, directive on what you would have to include in your current research and future research plans. But we do want, I guess I can start with one thing that you should have a vision articulated very clearly, a long-term vision.
What is the overarching question? What is the thing that excites you most about your research project or your future research project? And then it depends on the level at which people apply, but current, we need a summary of research that is being done, or where do people come from and where do they want to move, especially future plan will benefit from collaboration with people in Cambridge, people at the Sainsbury lab, to see that it's part of a progression.
Again, we don't have a template for this.
And
people do it very differently.
Yes, and that's fine. I think that make sure that it's enough on what you plan to do when you come, because what you have done is always possible to see in publications and other things. And I think the only formal thing we say should be there is like a summary of your research aimed more for the public, for the general public. So
it's useful to have maybe a rough timeline for when these different parts, especially when there is multiple research strands, possible funding that people might think they could apply to with that, and having maybe an idea of this is more work that I see done by 2 postdoc, 1 in collaboration, or more for PhD student, this kind of anything that shows there is some practical thinking of how to implement a research project and not just some floating theoretical idea, I would say.
Please do consider applying. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask someone at the Institute or Henrik as the director, and do get in touch and do look at the further particulars document. I remember when I applied, I actually almost missed that. So it's a little tricky. You might not be familiar with that terminology. So in the application, there's a further particulars section, so you can look at that for more information as well. We are going to stop here because we've reached our time. And obviously, thank you all who attended virtually and anyone watching on catch up on the recording. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. It's
Yeah,
always
really good question.
interesting to know
Yeah.
what is missing in terms of information.
Yeah.
And we hope this makes it easier for you to apply to the Sainsbury Lab. We're looking forward to your applications. Thank you.
Thank you.